Welcome to another exciting episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, the place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. And we definitely have another entrepreneur in the building today. But before we bring her on, I want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by Shield Wolf Strongholds, a wealth growth and protection company. When it comes to estate planning, when it comes to employee benefits, when it comes to life insurance, when it comes to retirement planning, if your plan ain't Shield Wolf, your plan ain't strong. You should retire higher than you would have prior. Make sure you visit shieldwolfstrong.com. Now, our guest, Linda Grizely, is a personal finance expert and financial wellness speaker who helps people build confidence and clarity with their money. Through her work with individuals and organizations, she transforms financial overwhelm into empowerment by making money management approachable, practical, and human. I think that's what they're trying to make AI, huh? Please welcome to the stage, Linda Grizely. Linda, thank you for coming on the Entreprenudist Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. How long have you been doing what you're doing now?
I've been doing this version of me for about 6 months, but I've been doing in the personal finance business in the field for a little over 7 years now.
Okay, and that's very interesting how you said that, this version of me. What does that mean to you?
At this point, I've stepped away from traditional financial planning, not saying I'm not going to go back there someday, but my licenses are inactive. I focus on coaching and financial wellness and providing a space for people to learn about money where they don't feel like they're being sold to or need to have money moved. Gives them a place to learn about it and understand things before they choose what to do next to work with someone who is going to help them with their plan, etc.
Oh man, I think you sound like the perfect person for somebody like myself to get to know. And I do know a couple people in your field, people who have done what they do for a long time with the licenses, and they've since let their licenses expire, and they've turned into essentially like a life strategist for these people. I know I'm not the one that's going to implement it, but based off my experience, based off of what I know, I'm able to give you an understanding enough to not be perfect, but enough to not get taken advantage of, become aware, not get taken advantage of, and then possibly even introduce you to some people that I have relationships with. Is that how your business model works?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think of myself as right now a bridge between someone who doesn't know much about finances or feels like they're behind or should know more to learn before they work with a financial planner or advisor that can help them with their finances, because it removes that feeling of doubt that they have going in, where they're embarrassed by what they do or don't know, or where they've been, or what debt they have, that they haven't saved enough, all these things. And it kind of takes that stress away from it, gives them a safe place to learn and grow, so that then they can feel comfortable walking in to a room where someone might be talking about things that they might not understand yet.
First you sell the cake, then you sell the recipe. Definitely. Is there nothing that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
The biggest thing I wish that I knew about getting into the financial services industry in the beginning is the different ways that people present themselves as financial advisors, how they get paid, what they do, what that looks like, and just understanding that they're not all the same. And I know, there's lots of places for insurance and products and things to come into play that can really serve a person. But there's also a place where you have to understand when you're just being sold something and when it really serves you. So learning about that and understanding that aspect of it would be something that I would say anyone getting started in the financial services industry should explore and learn more about.
Oh, yeah. A lot of these money vehicles are just tools. and what they say, a chainsaw in the hands of a skilled and experienced arborist isn't the same as a chainsaw in the hand of a toddler, right? If you were to go to someone and ask them, would you rather have Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson's clubs, or would you rather have their swing? Most people would say the swing because they understand that the tool itself doesn't make you a good player. Or it seems like what you're saying, people that you work with should understand that these people's products themselves won't get you to where you're going. You need to learn what to look for and what questions to ask to make sure that they have the right technique, the right swing, and even whether they work with insurance products or series type products, that you know what to look for when it gets implemented.
Exactly. But also, it is about the tool in a way because, you mentioned like a chainsaw. So if you think about, you go into a carpenter's garage and he probably has 20 different kinds of saws. He doesn't just need one kind of saw. How does he know what kind of saw he needs? So it is about the tool also, because the products are tools that go into your plan, and understanding how they get used for you is key to it. So if you walk into a saw shop and you just say, I need a saw, they're going to say, what for? What kind? How? They're not just going to sell you a saw. They're going to try to understand what you need it for and how it's going to serve you. So that does come into play in finance as well.
Not just the swing, but the club, because you don't want to be trying to hit off the tee with a sand wedge, right? So it's not just the swing, but the club. And it sounds like what you're saying is, regardless of whether it's the swing or the club, you probably need to work with people who ask you questions before they just implement.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about understanding the whole picture of it. And you're right. I mean, if you go in and you say, I need a set of golf clubs, they're not just going to sell you a set of golf clubs. Like, are you right-handed or are you left-handed? How tall are you? Are you male or female? There's a lot of things go into just buying a set of golf clubs. Even if you're looking for a starter set of golf clubs, you still need to know just some few basic things to make that decision.
Oh yeah, and the fact that you mentioned starter clubs means that the people should also have a form of self-awareness, because just because you have the money doesn't mean you should buy the most expensive clubs in the store. That means you should know that you're about to be swinging at a high velocity a piece of equipment toward ground that you have no experience doing it. You're probably going to damage these clubs. And maybe it may be best for you to, instead of replacing the engine, check the spark plugs, as they say. So how do people that know what to do? Because like you said, most people know to ask that before somebody implements something for you. It means they maybe should ask you questions first, and it makes it more likely that they're going to get it right. How do people know what to do still end up not struggling to follow through as it relates to money?
I think the main reason is because they don't take their own personality into account. So when you work with a financial person, sometimes they'll do what they call a risk tolerance questionnaire that gives them an idea of where you should be invested based on your tolerance, which is all about your tolerance is all about how you react to money. Whether your money is going to go up or down, and if you're going to have a gut reaction if it goes down, where you're going to think like, oh, I need to pull all my investments out because it went down. And that's one piece of it. But there's a lot more to it than just your risk tolerance, because there's your risk capacity. Like, how much risk are you able to take on? Because even though you might score high on a risk profile and be like, yeah, I'm all about put it all in and let's just go with the market and I'm good with ups and downs. But you know what? If you're saving for retirement and you're 5 years away and you don't have enough money, maybe you don't want to be swinging for the fences, because you need to keep something, in a safer investment so that you're able to retire and you're not going to have a big downswing that's going to prevent you from doing that. So that capacity is a whole different concept than the actual tolerance. And then you have a third thing, which I take into account too when I talk to people, is what is your need for risk? Do you need to be taking a bigger risk to get ahead? How far is that timeline, and how does that fit in with your tolerance and your capacity? So I really look at three different things and really try to get to know the person, and so that I can help them understand where they fit in that scale when they talk about where they would need to invest. Because if they don't understand how they're going to react or what their personality is going to do, then it's not going to work for them. Like, they're going to be working against themselves.
Oh yeah, risk tolerance versus risk capacity. A lot of people consider those terms synonymous, but like you said, just because a jug can hold 5 gallons doesn't mean it should. You need to make some educated guesses. Maybe your car, hypothetically speaking, metaphorically speaking, is parked a mile down the road, and all you need is just a gallon of gas to get you to the gas station, as opposed to maybe you have a lot longer to go, or maybe you're just storing this for future needs. Definitely a lot of questions that need to be answered, and all truths are parallel. Know your tolerance and also know your capacity. And for people like us in this industry, we also understand our training says before we can even give insight, before we can even give advice, we need to have somewhere in writing that we asked and got the answer. What's your tolerance? What's your capacity? What's your net worth? What's your income? And if the person that you're working with isn't asking you these questions, maybe they don't care, or they don't care to care, right? But either way, it's very important. Speaking of something that's very important, budgeting. To even understand what help you need, a lot of times you have to make a swipe at putting a budget together. What would you say are some misconceptions about budgeting?
I think it all ties back to your money personality, right? So even whether it's investing or budgeting, money decisions aren't just logical. Like, we think that they're logical, we think it's all a numbers game, but really they're emotional. And they're rooted in your patterns and fears and different stories that you carry with yourself, survival instincts. There's so much that goes into it. So when you create a budget, and I don't actually like to talk about budgeting as much as I like to talk about cash flow, because really
Mm.
it's all about cash flow, what's coming in and what's going out. And yeah, there might be some budgeting that needs to be done, but when you're working with budgeting, you're thinking very strict about how much money goes to what. It seems just so restrictive. And when you think about it as cash flow and boundaries, it feels like more of freedom and clarity and space for things that matter rather than a punishment, right? So reframing things, thinking about it as cash flow and how do I make my cash flow work for me, and not as budgeting, like I need to be very restrictive, is just a way to reframe it and really lean into how you can take that emotion and work for you instead of against you.
Oh yeah. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's very easy to say reframing, but that cognitive dissonance, you can't see the forest for the trees. How are money patterns from people's childhoods showing up in their adulthood?
Well, we as humans, we repeat what's familiar, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy. So our messages that we grow up with, which could be childhood or just our first jobs or things like that, they create what we think about money. Do we feel abundant or do we feel scarcity? How are we responsible with it? And how do we show up in a way that we have self-worth and price ourselves, how we save, how we spend, how we tolerate financial stress. Like there's so many things that go into it. So, for instance, if your parents fought about money all the time and it becomes like a negative thing for you, and you don't probably want to pay attention to money. So you probably avoid anything that makes you look at money or think about money because you grew up in a household where it was not a good place to be when money was brought up. A lot of us grew up in households where nobody even talked about money. So our parents didn't necessarily fight, but there was not talk about money. And so we don't know how to talk about money. It doesn't make any sense. Like, that we wouldn't want to talk about money because it's a part of our everyday lives. There's just all these things that go into how we've created these patterns for ourselves that we continued on without really thinking about where they came from or why they're there. And once you start realizing that, like, hey, where did this belief about money come from that I have? And you start thinking about your past and where that might have come from, then you start to think, like, is that story real? Is the story that I've been telling myself this whole time a real thing? Or do I need to figure out my own money story? So
Oh yeah.
I think that really just getting some introspection into where these came from can help you move forward with that.
Oh yeah, because it's all a story. It's all a narrative. Albert Einstein, one of the smartest men in our most recent time, and a lot of his theories, as people get smarter in general, and as the equipment uh, becomes online to actually verify his claims, a lot of his theories are becoming more and more true as we go on. One of his theories was that the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously. The past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously. And just like you said, limiting beliefs. The thing about limiting beliefs is you never know where those limitations are until you hit them. And it's kind of hard to believe that the 1-year-old me is still walking or crawling around while a 40-year-old me is talking to you, while 80-year-old me is somewhere playing bingo, right? But even if that isn't literally true, I believe it's at least metaphorically true. The person you are today is based off of the experiences that you had as a child, and the actions that you're doing based off the person you are today is building that person in the future. And it sounds like what you're saying is people need to look back in the past, look at some of those stories, and either say, hey, that happened to me and I'm permanently limited, or believe like Albert Einstein believes and change that story to better themselves today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a big one that I see where people think that they're just not worthy of more. And they're limiting themselves without realizing that they're limiting themselves because they're just like, well, this is just the way my life is. This is just the way it's going to be. But they're not doing the work mindset wise to get forward. They might take some steps to move forward, but if you don't really believe it, it's not going to happen.
Whether you believe you will or believe you won't, you're right. Henry
Exactly.
Ford. So,
Exactly.
how does somebody rebuild their confidence after these financial mistakes?
I think the biggest thing is to just remember that you are not alone. Everybody makes financial mistakes. You can read millions of books about, maybe not millions, I don't know how many, lots of books about people who made financial mistakes. I mean, Henry Ford being one of the people who, if you think of like, okay, so you had the Model T Ford, that was the Ford that was the one that made it, right? But how many models were before that? I don't know what number or what number the letter T is in the alphabet, but there's a lot of letters before T. So how many models were there? How many times did he fail, right? And he just kept trying, and then he hit huge success. There's so many stories out there like that. So when you think about a financial mistake that you've made, just remember, like, it's a data point. It's something that happened with data. It's not a character flaw. So when you start to understand the behavior behind why that mistake was happened, and you start to think about how you can change the behavior, then you're going to have confidence from just having clarity in what happened and why. And then you can move forward and try to recognize when that behavior starts to show up again, whether that is a self-sabotaging type of behavior or just a mindset or just an avoidance. Like, there's a lot of different ways that financial mistakes can happen. But once you recognize what happened in the past, then you can start to be like, see, okay, this is happening again. I don't want to make that same mistake. I need to change something so I don't go there again. And then, just know that it's a part of learning and a part of moving forward and growing.
Yeah, it's definitely a part of moving forward and growing, is recognizing those mistakes, and not just the mistakes, but the patterns that led up to it. And one thing that you see in a lot of these, like, Hall of Fame speeches, right? With this athlete that we all know, like, and love, that overcome adversities in some way, shape, or form, and just outperformed all the modern day gladiators such as them. But they were over and above. They were Maximus, right? And I will have my revenge. That Maximus, right? But when they get on that stage, one of the first people that they thank are their coaches, because a lot of these mistakes can't be observed when you're trying to observe for yourself. They say a lawyer that represents himself has a fool for a client. What would you say to somebody who says, all right, I like everything that Linda Grizely is saying, and I don't need no help. I'm studying on my own. I'm learning on my own. I'm going to do everything on my own. What would you say to those people who maybe feel like they can observe their mistakes and their behaviors on their own?
I think that there's only so much you can do on your own. You can make great strides on your own. I made great strides on my own before I actually hired a coach or hired a financial person. So there's a lot that you can do on your own, but at some point you need someone to come in and see the things that you can't see, or tell you about the things that you can't see. If you think about it, if you write something, you write a paper, like for college, say, and you write it. When you go back through to proofread it, you're the one who wrote it. So you don't see all the little mistakes because you're reading it in your mind the way that you wrote it, and it makes sense to you, and you skip over small errors because you just don't see them because you're so involved in it. And I think that is the same way we get with our finances and with, like you said, with a lawyer. Like, you can't see something from the outside. So you need another person's perspective.
Absolutely. I'm somewhat of a wordsmith, right? And even growing up, my grandfather used to always, like, say words to us and say what's the principal parts of this word and that. That's just something that we've always been a part of. And one of the definitions, and my grandfather, he was one of the people that would buy the set of encyclopedias and old dictionaries, right? He was that guy, right? So he actually has an old Webster dictionary. It's probably from like the 50s, I don't know, 60s, I don't know. And when you look up the words idiot and imbecile, it says, what it says is an idiot is a person with a mental capacity of 0 to 3 years old. An imbecile is a person with the mental capacity of 3 to 7 years old. And then when you just look up that word today, it just says a stupid person. Like, that's literally what it says. But for some reason, I said, I want to look up the original definition of idiot and imbecile. Like, where did all of this derive from? And come to find out, the definition of idiot is a private person. And I said, a private person? The original definition of idiot was a private person. And what they meant was the opposite of a public citizen. Because back then, and some people might say still today, back then, the people in the government considered all these citizens to be idiots, private persons, right? And it just evolved into stupid people, right? And I said, well, if the definition for idiot, the original definition was a private person, I wonder what the original definition for imbecile was. I looked that up and it told me the original definition for imbecile was a person without a supporting staff. Now, they meant staff as in stick, right? But you know, all the words aren't an accident. You can use a stick to hold yourself up, to defend yourself, to reach for something, just like you can use your human staff to hold yourself up, to reach for stuff, to defend you, right? Now, what did that tell me? It told me exactly what you just said, Linda. It told me that somebody who wants to keep everything private and not bring in a supporting staff is an idiot and an imbecile. And I'm not even insulting you. I'm just giving you the original definition of the word. I'm not insulting you. I'm just using the original definition. Is there something that every person should understand about money, regardless of their income?
I think they should understand that it is such an emotional thing, and that financial peace doesn't come from a number. It's going to come from awareness and understanding what you need and value and how you're wired, and that financial peace is not something you compare to somebody else. The other thing that I want people to know or understand or think about, I should say, is that when you think of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like the very bottom level, what's on the very bottom level? Housing, food, clothing, all the things you need to survive. Well, guess what? You need money to have those things. So money is actually the foundation of our hierarchy of needs, not those other things, because you can't get those other things without money. Right? If you don't have money, you have to apply to get money to fund those things. So there are some ways in our society that maybe you can get them without money, but really it's all about money. Everything is about money. So when you think about it that way, then you realize that there's a reason why everybody is stressed about money, because everything is like on that foundation of money.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some, you know, that's like flooring, right? You look at all of the essential bills, and then you figure out how to take care of the essential bills first, and then you proceed that way. In your opinion, is that how people should look at their finances? Should they automatically floor the necessities first and then look forward, or should they look at it another way?
Well, they do need to pay their essential expenses first, meaning everything that you have to survive is a priority. That's your housing, food, clothing, shelter, all those things that are the things that you need. In this day and age, that includes utilities like, you know, heating your home, having electricity and water, and probably a phone of some sort you have to have, right? So there are like the hierarchy of needs, those basic things are a little bit more than they probably were when that was originally created. But but funding those first is important. But the thing that I push in my teachings is making sure that you're taking care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of everything else. We've used a lot of examples, and I'm going to use another one, and that is put your oxygen mask on first, right? So you need to take care of yourself. So you want to pay all those necessary things, but you also want to have a set aside amount of money that's just for you. And I call that me money in my teaching. So I created this concept of me money, which is putting aside an amount that is just for you, only for you, that you spend on yourself. And it actually came about because I put my husband on a budget. So I handle the finances. I'm the finance person. So I pay all the bills. I do all the things. And he's involved, but he's kind of an avoider, but a spender. And he didn't realize how much money he was spending. So I said, I'm going to put you on this budget, and it's just a budget for the money that you spend on yourself. You know, it has nothing to do with what we're spending on us together, or our you know, our housing and food and clothing and all that. It's just what you're spending on you. So I put him on this budget, and the result was that he started making better choices with how he was spending his money. At the same time, I put myself on the same budget, and I was able to spend money without feeling guilty about spending money on myself. That doesn't necessarily mean I was spending less. It just meant that I was also making better choices and spending it on things that I really wanted rather than things that I could justify. So it created this idea that when we had our own money that we could spend on whatever we wanted, we made better choices because we got to choose what was worthy of our money that we were going to spend on ourselves. And it gave us a safe place to do that, where we're not answering to each other. Not that we ever were, but we're not answering to each other, but I'm not answering to myself either when I want to spend money on myself because it's already set aside for me. So this idea of me money gives you a place to add that to one of your essentials, being that you need to take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, definitely got to put your mask on, and also have that self-awareness, not just as an individual, but as a couple. All right, this is where I'm strong at. This is where you're strong at. This is where I should call a shot. This is where you should call a shot. How important is it when starting a budget that your spouse and our children be on the same page?
It's important that everybody is on the same page to the extent that they understand it. They understand it. They understand the reasons why. And it's important to talk about it, though, because just because they understand it doesn't mean that they agree with it or that they're going to be able to stick to it, because it's important to understand what their money personality is. So I do have the money personality quiz that you have noted in the ribbon there. And the money personality can be a saver, a spender, an avoider, a risk taker, or a security seeker. Those are the 5 that I identify. There's lots of different other money personality things out there, but those are the 5 I identify. And when you start to understand how a person interacts with money and what that money personality is, it can help you to understand why they react certain ways. So if I'm a saver, or let's say I'm a security seeker, which is someone who really likes, I need to have a plan. I need to know where all the money is going. It's going to freak me out if something is not in the plan. And then my spouse is someone who's like, oh, let's go do this, and is much more spontaneous. Then I'm going to start to have anxiety about money because of what my husband is doing, right? But if I say, okay, I understand that this is how your personality works with money, and that you need to be spontaneous and you need to have some flexibility and freedom to do these things spur of the moment without a plan. So I'm just going to build that into the plan. I'm going to build in this spontaneity money, and I'm going to put aside an amount for that and say, this is our spontaneity money that you're allowed to stay in the guidelines of. So I'm going to build that piece of that personality into the budget.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, you got to build it around the personalities, because especially if one person is creating it, which usually in most relationships, there's one person who's like the point person, and then they're trying to get the buy-in from the other person. But if they don't take into account how the other person interacts, which is going to be very different because everybody is different, then it's going to have a bigger chance of failure.
Oh yeah, everybody is different. But yeah, those statistics of what increases and decreases failure when it comes to couples it seems to stay the same. They say in sales, whenever there's a married couple and it has something to do with finances, we say whatever's not done with them is done to them, right? And you don't necessarily want somebody to feel like something was done to them when it comes to big financial decisions. So, yeah, it sounds like definitely it's very, not only is it important for your household to be on the same page, there are ways that you can structure it to where you still take into account their personalities, like the spur of the moment spenders. You don't have to tell that spur of the moment spender to stop spending sporadically. You can just say spend sporadically, but only spend from this budget.
Exactly. And it's not meant to be restrictive in the sense it's meant to be like, hey, here's your free space to do that in. It's a boundary. It's not, I mean, it might restrict them somewhat, but it's not restricting them to say that you can't do that and completely working against them, because that's going to fail.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going to go with what you called it earlier. It's a cash flow. I'm not giving you a budget. I'm giving you a cash flow in order for you to do what you do. What was your most favorite vacation?
My favorite vacation was a trip to Maui.
What did you like about it?
Oh, it was very carefree. It was one of those vacations where there was a lot to do, a lot to see, but also just a lot of just going with the flow and having fun, and not a lot of worry involved.
What's your definition of success?
Pretty much the same thing. Being carefree and feeling like, that you're okay and that you can kind of go with the flow and that you don't have a lot of pressure. And I would say that is my definition of success.
Carefree, go with the flow, not a lot of pressure. And that does seem like the way that you utilize human behavior to help people with their budget. Is there a question that I did not ask you that I should have?
That's a great question. Nobody has ever asked me that question before. I can't think of one right offhand.
Man, well, maybe next time. One more time, please let everybody know who you are, what you do, and how they can get in touch.
Absolutely. Linda Grizely, personal finance expert, financial wellness speaker, money coach, consultant, all those things. And you can find me at my website, lindagriz.com, LINDAGRIZ.com.
Thank you so much, Linda Grizely. This has been another episode of the Entreprenudist Podcast, a place to hear real entrepreneurs and business owners bear it all. I am your host, Randolph Love III. And remember, don't play with it, stay with it until you make pay with it. This is the Entreprenudist Podcast, signing off.